Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us on a frigid Friday night. We are going to warm you up. From Hollywood to the Beltway to the self-styled state of surprises, Alabama, it has not been a good month for men. Let's admit it. You know when you're barred from a mall, I mean, how low does your behavior have to be barred from a mall? So tonight, we are going to escape these tawdry, seamy headlines and bask in the genius of two remarkable artists who embody the humanist ideal of the Renaissance man, or maybe we should say Renaissance person these days. The Renaissance person is the individual who devotes their life to the refinement of their gifts. It's the person who expresses their genius through an astonishing variety of mediums. Isaac Mizrahi took the fashion world by storm at the young age of 26 in 1988 with his first collection. His fashion is a retro homage to icons like Mary Tyler Moore and Audrey Hepburn, and has always been lauded for its bold use of color, its imaginative use of fabric, and its wit. Think a ball gown with a matching baby Bjorn. How creative is that? He, for nearly 30 years, dressed everyone from Liza Minnelli to First Lady Michelle Obama to Audrey Hepburn herself. His 1994 collection and he were the subject of an award-winning documentary, Unzipped. If you haven't seen it, do. It's fantastic, and it features an array of stars ranging from Eartha Kitt to Cindy Crawford. It's amazing. He was the subject of a retrospective at the Jewish Museum. Isaac Mizrahi, an unruly talent. He, after launching two successful, reasonably priced lines for both Target and QVC, he shuttered the doors of his couture salon just a few years ago to devote himself to some of his other passions, performance and music, both behind the scenes, directing operas and creating the costumes for operas, and on stage in an incredible cabaret. His one-man show, Does This Song Make Me Look Fat?, opened to rapturous reviews at the Carlisle last year and returns there this year. Do not miss it. This man, who single-handedly relaunched the kitten heel, is also the author of two books. He co-wrote a documentary, Kingdom of David, History of the Israelites, from kitten heels to King David. That's Renaissance, people. He's the winner of 4 Council of Fashion Designer Awards, winner of a Drama Desk Award for his designs for the costumes for the women. He can be seen on Isaac Mizrahi Live on QVC, and he's also a judge on Project Runway All-Stars. Not to be outdone, our second guest tonight, James Whiteside, is an extraordinary innovator and budding icon. He's a principal dancer who began his career at the Boston Ballet in 2002 in their second company, became a principal there in 2009 before making the leap to American Ballet Theater in 2012. And there he sets hearts and imaginations ablaze with his incredible danseur noble interpretations of roles like Albrecht, Basilio, and my personal favorite, Ali, the shirtless slave. Some have seen the face of God in a pizza. I have seen it in the abdominals of James Whiteside. It is a religious experience. You will know what I mean when you see some of the video we're going to show you later tonight. Ballet is soft porn for women. We've just got to admit that. Which brings me to the point that James Whiteside did not want to be constrained by what he rightly calls the heteronormative standard of ballet. And therefore, he created an incredibly inventive alter ego, JbDubs, a pop star. And his erotic, always humorous videos smash all gender norms and stereotypes. and they are the rage of the internet. He's also a huge hit on the club scene with the drag posse, the Dairy Queens, in the role of Yoo-Hoo Betch, a character named after his favorite childhood drink, Yoo-Hoo chocolate milk. Innocence and eroticism all in one. That's James. He's an extraordinary talent, and the two of these men, in their insistence on their own originality, in their refusal to be boxed in, set us all free to be our own truest selves, and also to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. Please welcome Isaac Mizrahi and James Whiteside. To mention, the reason I stand before you tonight looking like the woman who overdressed for the garden party in Jaipur is that I am wearing an Isaac Mizrahi that I own from his 2012 collection, one of his last couture collections.
Nice dress.
It's so delightful to have you both here.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. How's it going? You drunk yet?
We are. We've had wine backstage. Both of you had the gift that many people don't have of having families that actually were supportive of your artistry. James, you've said that your parents sculpted you into the sort of schizophrenic person that you are, and your father bought you a sewing machine when you were a little boy, and your mother wanted you to surpass her. So talk to us about these sort of cradles of creativity in which you were spawned.
Me first? You first?
You go.
Me first. So my parents divorced when I was 2 years old, so I always had sort of a dual childhood. I would do Mondays at my mom's, Tuesdays at my dad's, every other Wednesday at my dad's, Thursdays at my mom's. You get the gist. So from an early age, I just sort of a flibberty-gibbet, a will-o'-the-wisp, a clown. Does anyone get the reference?
Hope so.
One person, come on.
Maria.
No, come on, of course.
Thank you. Good God. Jesus.
Sound of Music. Name that tune.
You know, it's not like I was the fifth child. So by the time I came around, my mom was like, meh. And so when I found dance, it was just like, oh, he likes something. That's so charming. That one time he liked something.
Because you hated everything.
I really was just bad at everything else.
How did you find dance?
Well, there was an ad in the Yellow Pages, and it was a photo of a man holding a woman over his head with one hand, and she was in a fabulous sort of like starfish situation. And I was like, that is cool. Is it the circus? What is it? I'm into it. And I showed my mom, and I was like, what is this? And she was like, that's for a dance studio, queen.
It's not a circus.
Much to my dismay, it was a dance studio. And she brought me in, and they happened to be doing trial classes for 2 weeks to get new students in for the new school year. And I became immediately obsessed, truly, immediately.
At age 9. So,
9,
yep.
yeah.
And what about you, Isaac?
Well, you know, it's hard to say that what encouragement is, you know.
Okay.
It's hard to say. Living vicariously is another way to put it.
Okay.
You know?
Stage parents.
in a way. You know, I was from a sort of religious family.
Yes, Syrian Jews.
A Syrian Jewish family from Brooklyn.
Hence.
And a very long story, but to make it a little shorter, the idea of being in the arts was not exactly a great sort of thing that made people happy.
Right.
And so, I mean, my mom was a really stylish person, and she kind of, I think she really liked the idea of my going into fashion more than going into show business, because show business was just not possible. It just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So when I kind of did that, when I made that decision to go into fashion, there was rejoicing. You know, like I went to performing arts high school and I was an actor.
Right.
And I might have done that, and there was a big sort of pall cast on the situation. And so when I decided to go into fashion, my father was in the children's wear business. And so, you know, yes, he bought me the first sewing machine, and actually it was the one way that my father and I had of connecting, You know, it was such a different time. I can't even tell you how different it was in the 1970s. I mean, you were born in the 80s or something, right? Yeah.
He's a child. So, we're old enough to be his parents.
This is radio, right? They can't see that. But, sorry, but but the point is that it was a different time in a different world, and you know, it wasn't so great to be doing female impersonations. You know, that's what I did. I did female impersonations.
I didn't realize that.
I did.
So who were your tops?
Streisand, Judy Garland, all the things you would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's so funny because
the patron saints of
there
gay
was
men.
Bullying and crazy stuff going on. And you know, I guess, how do you disagree with bullies in 1970, whatever it was?
You kill them.
No, you can't. I mean, you can't say to your son, no, they're wrong, because they weren't wrong. I mean, they were kind of right. It wasn't exactly the greatest thing to be doing in 1972 when I was 11.
Okay.
You know, doing those things. It was kind of like really crazy. So when I chose fashion, there was like a kind of thrill that
And
went
when
through.
did that moment
and that
happen
was
for you?
encouraged. That was encouraged.
When did that moment happen for you?
You know, I don't know. It's just kind of happened.
It just
kind
happened.
of happened, yeah.
So, and for James, for you, ballet. Why ballet? And can we show an image of James as the prince in Swan Lake?
Well,
it's coming up soon.
Here it comes,
Here
y'all.
it comes.
Nope. There it is.
There you are.
Oh, it's with Jillian.
Yes.
Love Jillian.
We have a lot of Jillian. So.
All right. I didn't actually like ballet when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult as a 9-year-old when you're in the studio dancing to Britney Spears to then go to ballet class.
So how did you find it, and how did you fall in love with it?
It pissed me off that I wasn't good at it. So I felt very natural in tap and jazz and acrobatics. And I got to a certain point where I realized that I was not good at ballet. And I took ballet. I took ballet pretty frequently. I just knew that I wasn't good at it. So I went away to ballet school to try and get better. And that's when I really fell in love with it. And my teachers, because they knew like right when I started that I needed to be a ballet dancer at some point. And they would take me to see ABT every year. They would take me to the gala, and they'd say, look at how awesome this is. What a beautiful theater. And I'm like, cool. What about Britney Spears? And eventually, you know, they would take me backstage after the show at the Met, and I just fell in love with the world. It wasn't so much the art of ballet that inspired me at that age. It was, you know, it was like a weird lifestyle thing that intrigued me. And when I realized that I wasn't good at ballet, it pissed me off. And so I tried to get good, and I guess it worked.
Oh, it did. Oh, and the rest is history. You have a love affair with ballet, and you've designed a lot of costumes for ballet.
And I want to ask you a question. What age did you start focusing on ballet? How old were you?
I think I was 14 when I realized that I wasn't.
Late.
Yeah, for sure.
Late.
That's late.
And yet he
for
caught
point
up.
shoes, it's very late.
He caught up. Can we show a clip of James in On the Water, which is a piece with Jillian? You have done a lot of costumes for ballet.
I have, you're right.
And what do you love about doing costumes for ballet?
I think it's what he loves. I love the whole idea of the world of it, you know, and the what is it? The language of it, right? It's like learning French, right? And getting really good at French, and then you can speak French. And when I was a kid, I went to class all the time too. So I kind of, and also, I performed a little bit here and there. And then I could never, ballet was not my thing. I mean, I took class, but so, dance, I just love watching bodies. I love bodies. I love flesh.
Me too.
That's a whole other
I love
discussion.
bulges in tights. That's another thing. And I love legs. I love legs. I'm sorry, I'm just going to be honest. That's
No,
what I
we
like.
all do. That's why.
No, seriously, that's why you
we're
go to the
here.
ballet, right? Yeah.
Soft porn for men and
A little
women.
bit, yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, there's something so lovely about it and so controlled. And that it's just, you can look at something and go, that's beautiful or vulgar or something. Yeah, it's a very fine edge. There's an edge to it.
You work a lot with Mark Morris. Who are some
do.
of the other choreographers that you love working with? Twyla.
Yeah, well, I've worked with Twyla Tharp,
Yeah.
and I love working with Twyla Tharp. And I love working with Mark. Those are the only two I've really worked with. Yeah, I mean, here and there with others, but mostly with them. And I am surprised because I almost think it's like fetish, It's like this, you have to be in it, you have to be almost like it's like a fetish. Does that make sense?
Does that resonate for you?
Well, point shoes, I mean, what is that? That's a fetish. You have to literally live all the time for this crazy ideal of being balanced on, or just on releve. I mean, running around a stage on releve, that's hard.
I'm confused. I agree in a strange way, but I don't feel like it's what drew me to it. I feel like at this point, ballet has been fetishized almost because of like its portrayal in fashion and film, honestly. And whereas I find it to be incredibly unglamorous at times. I like waltz around in my PJs all day pretty much, and I'm smelly.
Yeah, but by fetish I mean like tattoos where you can't stop getting tattoos, right? Or, well, I think a lot of stuff is fetishized now, right?
Yeah.
A lot of fashion is fetish.
Without
now.
a doubt.
Yeah, it really is.
And I'm not mad because, the more it is, the more people come to see the ballet.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I alluded to this quotation in the introduction, but I wanted to read it in full. I became very aware of the heteronormative standard in ballet very early, and that made me sad. I will never get to express myself as my true self. And for any of us who have been marginalized or asked to leave a big portion of ourselves at the door, that resonates profoundly. When did you have this reckoning that you basically were going to have to play it straight and you weren't going to be able to be your full self on stage?
Well, I feel like it almost goes back to, I got this story for the gay newspaper in Boston when I was really young. I think I was 19 or something. And the head of PR in Boston Ballet said to me, well, I guess you're going to come out? And I'm like, wait, what? Queen, what? And she was like, well, if you do this, people are going to know that you're gay. And I was like, I'm really gay. I'm not really concerned. And it never occurred to me to not be myself. It just really didn't.
Right.
Which is, telling. It really reflects my generation in a way. And when I started doing more and more leading roles, I became very aware that I have to make out with Juliet, and I have to fall in love with Aurora, and I fall in love with Odette and Odile, and it's just, the list keeps going. And I'm like, oh my God, can I just mac on a dude for once? But it's just, I long for the day when there is a better representation of all people in classical ballet. And I might have to just do it myself.
I think that's a good idea. Isaac, what do you think ballet needs?
What do I think ballet needs? I don't know. Maybe it needs a really fallow period where everyone just stops looking at it for a really long time so it can rebuild itself as something. I mean it. There's too much pressure on it or something, you know? I mean, that's what I think.
The
A
weight
fallow period where these giant companies just go away and refigure what they're going to do. Yeah, that's what
creative destruction. So, James, you created this alter ego for yourself. Can you tell us a bit about the
one?
birth of not you who betch,
Okay.
but JbDubs? How was he born?
when I was a teenager, I used to come into New York City. I'm from Connecticut, and I used to take the train in and go to Virgin Megastore, which is, what, like a Disney store or something? Barfy. Barfy. Adjective. And I would go from kiosk to kiosk and study the music, and I loved like hearing the European imports of like rare remixes of things. I was like queening out super hard before I could even go out to clubs, and I was fascinated by production of music. So when I got my first computer when I was 19 years old or so, I started playing with music production software, and from there I just decided to create a persona that could express himself via the tunes.
Okay, let's take a quick look at JbDubs. And do you want to set this up? This is New York City Piece of Me, which is an homage. It's a cover of a Britney.
So I mean, I grew up in the TRL days with like NSYNC, Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, Christina Aguilera, etc. And I wrote this song after like one of my favorite eras of Britney Spears, the blackout era, when she was really like, you know, going insane, which was fascinating. And the song, the original is called Piece of Me, and I reworked it into like basically to, you know, comment on my life and how I feel people view me and what I do.
Different from Prince Albrecht. Isaac, a few years ago, you did something that I thought was so brave for an artist, which was basically walking away from one of your loves. You walked away from couture.
Yeah.
And most of us who have had a success in something cling to it till the last red rock, the last dying day. I was absolutely astonished that you made that move. How and why? And
well, I couldn't help it. You know, Susan, I just couldn't help it. I stopped thinking that way. I stopped thinking that way.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Just
and so it became harder and harder to focus because it really takes such a big part of you to do that, you know. And I was so kind of interested in doing other things. I'd begun doing other things and was taken away from it. And I also acknowledged this one thing, which is just the truth for me. It might not be the truth, but I find that the best clothes come from incredibly fresh sources. Like the minute something becomes too established, it just doesn't make such interesting things anymore, you know? Like, I think there are definitely exceptions, but like Prada just is always good. You know, I guess because she knows how to keep young people around her who are, you know, insane enough and kind of brings fresh things. But the rest of it just feels like, you know, not so great.
Reheated.
And there are so many fashion shows. And I feel like I actually started to feel bad for the fashion press, which is a really bad thing to do, to feel any kind of sympathy for journalists and critics, right? But I did. I felt like, how could they go to all those shows and see all that stuff? And they have to, and you resent them if you don't. And then I thought, no, this is like, I can't do this. And it's better done by someone who is really young and understands that whole, you know, when you stop going out till 3 in the morning at night, there's absolutely you have no relevance.
You've stopped? I haven't.
I've stopped. You know, I was talking about this. I think like I need to start taking drugs or something.
I know.
Because I have no fun except watching, you know, Chopped.
We're very dull.
I swear to God, it's really bad. It's terrible. That's what I think is fun.
Well, the whole purpose of having James here tonight is,
yeah, exactly.
is that he invites us out so we can find we're not playing mahjong together in our pajamas.
You're just on the border. You're going to stop really soon.
You got a few more very good years.
No, especially drag, because drag is a lot of work, man. That is work. Sorry.
Just wearing the heels alone.
Well, the heels, but the makeup and the tape and the powder and the eyebrows of the
Indeed.
I do like pretty ugly drag compared to most queens. It's a real like, who's that garbage person? Chic though.
I don't think ugly and you go in the same sentence, and that's not sexual harassment. So,
hey, back off. Back off, lady.
We're going to take a look at what you have been doing in your cabaret.
Oh,
yes, we are going to show a little
I'll
clip from Does This Song Make Me Look Fat?
Really? All right.
Yes, here we go. Let's roll that tape.
I saw you there one wonderful day. You took my heart. Wait a minute now. You took my heart. You dressed it in a little white pantsuit. Okay. You bum rushed it to the DNC in a motorcade, okay? Right? And you like went on about some glass ceiling bullshit and took my heart and threw it away.
There you
So, Stephen Holden, in his glowing review that looks like your mother wrote it.
I know.
I mean, it's gushing. And he calls this alt cabaret. To me, it felt very Weimar Republic.
Well, thank you.
Just that political, edgy. How did? Because I'm sure you were working on it.
Guess what? Last night I went to the Guggenheim to that dinner.
Okay.
And that fabulous artist was there who's made those animals that were kind of taken away.
Yes.
And he was Chinese, and he made this incredible speech in Chinese, which was translated beautifully by some woman. And he said this great thing, which I thought was smart. He said, you know, art is not necessarily politically correct. And I thought, and I wanted to like stand up and start shouting and screaming.
And you didn't.
And everybody didn't, so I didn't. But I did clap loudly.
So you got to be yourself.
But you know, you think about it. If you pick up a pencil or you put on shoes, and you do anything, you are automatically political.
Absolutely.
You have some kind of political, no matter what.
So
right?
when you were first working on the show, though, the election hadn't happened yet. How did the election?
It had just happened. It was November.
Well, when you performed
I did that right after the election.
Okay, yep.
So it was a very tough time in the world.
Yep.
And all you had to say was like, have a drink, and how shitty is this? You know, and people just loved you for 70 minutes.
Yeah. They did. They absolutely did.
Well, I mean, yeah. It's such a great venue, too. The
It's a fantastic venue.
Yeah, it's a great venue.
Yeah. James, in your song that we just saw, you make reference to 2 in and 2 out, which I took to mean too gay for some people, not gay enough for others. Another thing many of us minorities can relate to. You're too black, you're not black enough. How have you experienced that in your life?
Well, it just depends on where I am at that particular moment.
Yep.
You know, there's a very sort of dire reality that if you're extremely effeminate, there's no way you're going to be cast as Prince Siegfried. There's just no way. And so I have this sort of strange feeling in my heart when I do get to play these roles that I'm sort of abandoning my people. And I don't know how to deal with that, and so I write silly pop songs and hope for the best.
Well, did you want to add?
That to be very, like, sort of just a quick one.
Your ring. Is that your wedding ring?
It is.
Let's not throw that away.
Sorry. Yeah, I find that amazing because that's what you do, James. Like, you do that. You're supposed to be Siegfried.
And I like being Siegfried, you know, but I also feel like a weird guilt. And
have you ever been guilted?
Why?
Because I see the kids in the school, in the ABT school, and I see the ones who are incredibly femme, and they're not going to get hired. It's just how it is. They're not.
To this day?
To this day. There was a really sweet boy. He was He was a Russian boy who was very tall, very lanky, and he always wore high heels and earrings. And I don't believe him to be trans, but he was just like fabulous, truly. Like Google fabulous picture of this kid. And I mean, didn't get a job, and I knew he wouldn't. And there's no world in which I would have been like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? You might want to tone it down. Otherwise, you're not going to get a job. Because I would literally have crumbled. You know, that is not something that I want to perpetuate. But there's this, you know, how are you going to believe the story? Do you know what I mean? So that's why I feel guilty.
Yeah. And so again, in the future, because you are such an incredible choreographer, you can create that ballet in which that young man has a role to play.
And you bet your tits I will.
That's actually quite, don't you find that shocking?
I find it so fun. It's such a funny thing to feel guilty about something like that. And I think too, like, you know, you should do a show about him, that boy, and then get someone to play the boy, not the boy. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're an artist. You're supposed to be recreating things. And so that boy, if he loves ballet, would die to be Siegfried, I think, you know, and also die to be Odette Odile, right? And he should be able to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand.
Well, I mean,
the guilt
Matthew
thing.
Bourne did that, but so it's.
But it's still butch as shit. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I mean, it's not a femme queen. It's like a sexy masculine male.
Yeah, but
as
femme
a swan.
queens, though, that's so limiting for femme queens. It's like, I find the femme queens I know are dying to do, like, truck drivery things.
Oh,
too.
for sure. I want to do everything. I want to be able to do everything. I want other people to be able to experience. Like, there's seriously nothing more fun than really changing yourself. And I think that's essentially why I started drag, is because it's so fun to be a clown.
So let's talk about drag, because you've said it's an incredible way to comment on what's wrong with the world. So what are you saying about the world in your drag?
I mean, for me personally, to do the whole thing, the whole ritual of getting beat down and, you know, boop, 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 it's to abandon yourself so completely, to completely, like, take off any care about perception. And, like, I don't know, right now I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I'm wearing a suit. Okay, cool, I have to talk to people and it's gonna be fine. But when I get in drag, none of that matters. Mm-hmm. And it's really one of the only times where your interactions are so spontaneous, so honest, so most of the time politically incorrect, just by being so honest, that it's a very rare feeling as a human being.
That freedom.
Yeah. And just like the shrugging it off, this is who the fuck I is, you know? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Have you ever had a moment like that?
Well, I certainly don't make up to do that. I do the opposite. I take my clothes off and get in bed and do that. You know, like, seriously. Or
with your husband.
No, I mean it. No. I mean it. It's like, I think you're fortunate because you're so physical. You're such a physical embodiment of the idea of art, you know. And being a dancer and a drag queen, it's all physique. It's all body, you know. And you're lucky. I mean, I always wanted to be that kind of object, if you will, you know. I love the idea of being an object on stage. But I feel as though, you know, more and more, when I write, I get to this crazy place of honesty. And I just, you know, not that it's going to get published that way, in the same way that probably your show won't get presented exactly the way you want it, you know. But when you write, you kind of do have to go to this place that is just perfect honesty, you know, in every way.
And it makes you feel very free.
It does. It makes me feel very connected. Mm-hmm.
So crazy. Tell us a little about the process of writing your memoir.
Well, I am writing this memoir, and it's just a mind-boggling thing. It's more work than I could
It's hard being 35. And
did you write when you were a kid or a teenager or anything?
I'm writing it now. Oh, did I write when I was a teenager?
Do you have a diary or anything?
Sure. Yes, I had a diary and I wrote things. I wrote puppet shows when I was a tiny kid. And, yeah.
What
I was
were they
a
about?
puppeteer. I was a puppeteer. They were the first show I did was my mom took me to see Follies in 1970, blah blah. You know, this
Yes.
Sondheim show, and so I had a puppet theater in the garage, and it was called Follies basically, and it was just a series of like fabulous numbers with like glittery marionettes that I made. And I wrote the songs and I taped them on the cassette player on the piano and sung over this. It was hilarious. It was really like, talk about like a full expression of something, you know? So that's how I started learning to sew that way from puppets. And where were we? I'm sorry.
We were talking about your memoir.
Oh,
We
yeah,
were
my
talking about your
memoir.
memoir.
So now, so I started writing things when I was a kid, but I actually, in earnest, I don't know, what was the first thing? I wrote this graphic novel about a supermodel in the 90s, right? And that was an interesting kind of thing to write. And anyway, I don't know, I've written terrible screenplays since then, like everybody, like you, right? And so then I got
Mine
this
aren't
job
terrible.
writing. Oh, they aren't. Well, let me tell
Beg
you
your
something,
pardon.
Susan. Okay, no, but then I got this job. You know, I took this deal to write a memoir, and I thought it's a good thing to write because I know the story. So that's why it's a good.
Or
thing
you
to
think
write.
you know the story.
No, I know the story, and it's just a matter of kind of refining it and making it about something. You know, it's just interesting. And horrible, and every time I read something, we were talking in the green room about Henry James, so now I want it to read like a Henry James novel, which it can't.
And no one wants to read 19th century sentences
They
anymore
don't?
except for you and I.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And everybody in the room and everybody listening.
everyone listening
Sorry,
on the radio. So for both of you in this dire political moment, what do you think your role is as an artist?
I don't think my role as an artist is any different because of that asshole in the White House. I'm not going to let that dictate what I do as an artist, by the way, except in my, you know, sort of expressing myself like that, like what I just said.
With profanity.
Yeah, with profanity, exactly.
I feel like a certain overwhelming obligation to be incredibly honest and unashamed of myself and the presentation of what I do and my art and my just person, and hope that it teaches kids to not be ashamed of themselves and to, you know, find interests that make them happy and enrich their lives and be kind to people, you know, simple things like that.
Well, you mentioned kids, and I wonder what would each of you want to say to your younger self, something that you know now that you didn't know at 15?
Oh God, I was such a douchebag. I would tell myself to perhaps try in school and take the SATs. I really was like, I don't need that. It's mostly practical things. I really tried hard with dance, and I think I still do. I try.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I would probably want to convince myself that I wasn't fat. Because that has been that, and also that's what I love about today is that there's no such thing as like fat people anymore. It's great.
It's Rubens is back. It's just
I mean it. It's like you can't be fat anymore. You can't be ugly anymore. That's a great thing. But it would be wonderful to go back and convince myself that I could be not so, you know, that I could be the person wearing the clothes or the person standing on the stage. You know, that would be a nice thing to believe.
Well, you are the person standing on the stage
I know,
at the Carlisle. When are the dates?
The dates are January 30th through February 10th.
We will be there.
You should come. It's really good.
It's around the corner for me,
I
so
know,
I'm definitely coming. And James, you're about to go off and dance the Nutcracker in
Yes,
Orange
have you heard of the
County.
Nutcracker? It'll be my first time dancing it. I've been doing the Nutcracker since I was 10 years old.
This one's the Ratmansky, though. This one's different.
Yes, it's the hardest one. I'm going to LA. We do a run of shows in Orange County, actually, at the Segerstrom Arts Center. It's a fabulous theater complex, and you get away from the winters. So we win.
So I want to open the floor up for questions. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours if you have questions. A lady over here. Oh, it's Miss Wendy Goodman, no less.
James, do you feel the freedom to do choreography now for the company? Is there, because why aren't you doing it like madly?
Well, you know, I have to be hired. Right now, I'm in the phase where I'm making a bunch of stuff that no one wants, and I'm okay with that because I'm hoping that, if you do something for long enough, people believe that you're good at it. And I'm at that point, I like to create in like a ridiculous range of styles too. So it's very hard for people to be like, well, wait, what do you do? Like, I don't get it.
But the 2 videos we saw, he choreographed both of. So, and there is now a pipeline for ABT dancers to then choreograph. So yeah. I think a few words to the powers that be.
Oh yeah, I'm not that scary, like I do scary things sometimes, but I can make a pretty ballet too. So hire me, thanks, bye. All right, come on.
No other questions?
Yeah, there's a lady over here.
This is for Isaac, but when you were talking about how you decided like I had to stop fashion because I couldn't, like it was just, I think I was wondering, how did you know it was like actual stopping moment versus just like a mental block for a while?
It wasn't even really like a stopping moment. It was kind of this moment where I just thought, I'm gonna focus on something else, and it kind of dropped away. Does that make sense? It's like if you were cooking a bunch of dishes and suddenly you thought, I can't cook that thing anymore, I'm gonna cook these, and that thing just burned and someone threw it away and that was the end of that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you know that that's where you were at? Like, did you ever have a moment?
I know where I'm at, don't you?
Oh, I think so.
I know where I'm at.
Hopefully not. I might be delusional.
I'm not sure I don't know where I got this idea about feelings and how they never lie. Like your feelings are never wrong. And I don't know, if I didn't know that, I would have never made it to this point. And I'm not exactly sure where I learned that.
Mm-hmm. To follow your gut.
To know that your feelings don't lie, and that if you're not lying, then there's nothing wrong, Because when you're raised in this religious Jewish background, you're told you're going to stone you if they find out you're gay, right? Literally throw stones at you till you're dead, right? And something tells you, no, I feel this is right. I feel that they are wrong. And you're going up against something huge, and you just keep telling yourself. So it's like at some point when someone goes like, okay, monster heels, I hate them. Whatever you're supposed to do with fashion today, I hate it. I don't think it's relevant or good looking, and I can't do it. So I'm going to stop now,
Yeah.
I mean that. I'm not into construction. I like, other really kind of soft, easy, beautiful things, And so like, it just wasn't my moment anymore. And I felt wrong either doing what I was doing because it was irrelevant, or trying to do what like other people were doing just to be cool, which is what other designers seem to do a lot of, and it's not so great to me.
It's not, and it's unhealthy.
To me, I mean, that's just the truth for me, do you know? Yeah.
But you raised the notion of growing up in this very traditional Jewish home.
Yeah.
Tell us about coming out to your family. When did you come out to your family?
Well, I came out really young, as a matter of fact. I came out so young. I was 18 when I came out. Only because I was listening to...
That was 18. That was young in our era. It's not young today.
No, it is, because I was listening to the
9-year-old.
Fabulous Jonathan Groff, who I worship. If you're out there, call me. Okay?
Call me too, definitely.
Jonathan Groff. Okay, toi, we're talking. Yeah. Jonathan Groff, and he was telling the fabulous Terry Gross, if you're out there, call me. Okay? But he was telling Terry Gross that this whole saga about how he didn't come out till he was 22, and I was like, that's amazing. He's so much younger than me. It took him till he was 22, and he had these incredibly, massively supportive parents, right? Whereas mine, mine were just, they didn't understand. My mother said to me she didn't even know what a lesbian was until she was 30, So you understand this.
Yes.
You're looking at something, right?
Yes.
And I came out when I was 18, and I did. I just came out. Yeah. And my dad didn't know. So I was living in kind of like this secret place until I moved out 3 years later when I was 21. And then it was like, you know, I'm here.
Hello,
I was
world.
here. Yeah, exactly.
More questions? Yes, there's a lady over here.
Thank you both for sharing your stories, and I feel you both are sharing what makes you really feel alive. And I just wanted to know what is out there today that makes you feel alive, like what people are creating that you say, wow, that is amazing.
Watch all of James's videos. Those will make you feel alive.
All right, I guess I'll go. I'm not terribly well informed on the art scene, as it were, and things inspire me that are could be viewed as not terribly artsy, but things that I draw like into my heart aren't terribly, I don't know. They're not visual things. They're things that inspire me to be better at, you know, feeling things and, that inspire me to reach for things that I would never reach for. And this is sort of ridiculous, but just bear with me. There's this anime show. Do you know what anime is? It's Japanese animation. It's fabulous. There's this kids show called Naruto. And it's about a young boy who there was a demon sealed within him when he was a baby. And the demon ruined the whole village where he grew up. And so everyone hates him. And he doesn't know until he's a teenager why everybody hates him. No one will tell him. No one will speak with him. He's an orphan. And throughout everything, everyone hates him. And he is determined to become the leader of the village. And he's determined to become the best ninja in the village. And when I watch this children's show about this little half-demon kid and the way he speaks and the way he reaches for things and the way he interacts with people and the way he's generous with his feelings and support of other people, it like sort of like falls over me in a way that I am like, wow, I can't believe I'm being so affected by this kids show. And, you know, those are the times when I'm really appreciative of, you know, what anyone can view as art. And that's just one of the examples, but, you know, music and all that stuff. But anytime something really just seeps in, I'm like, oh, you're doing it, Earth. Way to go.
It's rare that things seep in, isn't it?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
And that is when I feel good about things, right? And I don't know, there are just people that I follow, young artists who I really like looking at their work, and old artists whose work I really like looking, like Mark Morris. Everything he does just makes me go mad with happiness.
Choreographer.
Yeah. And some drag queens make me go mad with happiness. I mean, I'm also shallow as a kiddie pool. I mean, I like looking at beautiful things. I went to the Met today, and I was really happy for most of the day.
You were also a big Nene Leakes fan.
I am a very big Housewives fan. And of course, when you said you were going to Orange County, I was like, Shannon Bedore? Do we know Shannon Bedore? Vicky Gunvalson? Are we coming for Vicky Gunvalson? Seriously, like these are the people I live for. Not exactly.
They are a little bit, though. They're your guilty
pleasure. A little
pleasure.
bit. You're a little bit. No, I'm not even guilty about it. It's pleasure. Pleasure is pleasure, babe.
Said the priest to the nun.
Said the priest to the little boy. Oh, God. No, I'm sorry. That was just a really bad, relevant joke. Sorry. No questions.
We've stunned them into silence.
I know. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there's one back here.
Hi, I just had a question for Isaac and James. You can speak as well. But I read that you had mentioned how Mary Tyler Moore had influenced you when the show debuted. You were, I think, 9 years old, and you said it ended when you were 16. If you can just speak how her show influenced you professionally and personally.
You know, it was just great is the thing. The show was just great. And I would love to speak about that because it was such a popular and commercial success, right? But that's immaterial. It was just terribly, terribly good. And it was this great story about this woman, by the way, speaking about women's stories, et cetera, right? And it didn't apologize, and it was integrated. It was just a really smart story about this woman who left a marriage and left a guy on the altar and kind of showed up in Minneapolis. And I always had this fantasy that I'd move to Minneapolis, right? But the point is that, like people say, oh, I like, indie movies, and I like blockbuster movies, and I think, well, I like good movies. I don't think that the fact that it was such a giant influence on everybody doesn't make it less great. It doesn't make it more great. It just was such a good thing. She was so beautiful and great. That's all.
And you wanted to be her.
I did. She was my spirit animal.
Your spirit guide, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it was such a crazy, also like a melancholy thing about living by herself in that little apartment.
There was a sadness to it.
It was.
You're too young to even, he doesn't even know what we're talking about.
Oh, are you kidding me?
I hope you know what that is.
She can turn the world on with her smile. I just threw the beret for the listeners. Okay. Do you know Marlo Thomas? Everyone?
Of course.
Marlo.
That girl.
So, that girl, thank you. So, when I was a kid, we used to go to the public library and rent records. And I always chose this one record called Free to Be, You and Me.
The best thing ever made.
Truly, the best thing ever made. And it really was like my guide to Earth. And there were different stories. If you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. It holds up. And just the theme song is just about freedom and expression and emotions. And as a child hearing that, especially someone like myself who is alternative, it had a great impact. So way to go, 70s women.
I know. It was so not your generation, that thing. That was my generation.
It was at the public library, so it was, garbage. No, I'm kidding.
Go libraries.
Libraries, thank you.
James, what awareness did you have as a young child of being different?
None. Zero. Everyone always told me I was different. I just didn't believe them. Delusion. Everyone was like, you're gay. And I was like, I'm not gay. And it wasn't just denial. It was like I really desperately wanted to try to be straight, which is very sad. So I had girlfriends through high school, and I was definitely hooking up with dudes on the side. Sorry about it, girls. My poor girlfriends, they totally knew.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to just be cool. It wasn't until I went away from home that I was, like most people, college, that I was just able to be like Madonna reinvention sort of situation.
Is there
anybody else? Come on, going once, going
What if we ask you questions? Where'd you get that scarf?
Is that working?
Like it.
Hello?
That's nice.
Marseille, that's glamorous.
Wow.
Hi, Isaac. I've got a question for you. When you decided to move away from the world of couture, and you took a break and you did some other interesting things, and then you moved into theatre, do you think you took the same creative process with you, or do you think as you've grown and changed that has changed with you?
No, it's a different process. It is. It's a different process, and I'm going to level with you. I take more pleasure in this idea of preparing, the greatest thing in the world is rehearsal with my band. Like that, there's such a deep kind of pleasure. Or I remember when I was rehearsing with this opera that I directed in St. Louis, and it was just
the Magic Flute,
this
or
crazy thing. No, the Magic Flute,
yeah,
for instance. And there was just this incredible focus and concentration, as opposed to this crazy nervousness about perfection. It's like the fashion thing. It was like always running after people to please make something better and do something better. That's all it was about for me, no, take that off. Like, here, you have to make this better. You know, that's all it was. Begging people to sew things nicely, right? I feel like that was all I did. And to take off those shoes and put those shoes on and redo your hair. And that's what it was. And it was like this kind of like annoying, I felt like I was annoying women all the time, you know? And I didn't really care that much about, you know what I mean? It's like, I didn't care. I don't care what people look like. And people would come say, oh God, I was so nervous about what I was going to wear when I was singing. I don't care. I really don't. And I'm kind of embarrassed that people really thought I cared all those years, you know? Because I love beautiful clothes. I love fashion. It's a fun thing, right? And the minute it becomes something not fun or kind of mean-spirited, which a lot of times it does become, and maybe not so much anymore, but my generation, like we grew up around, like I guess that's how people sold clothes, is by making other people feel that they were wearing terrible clothes and that they would look way better in these clothes. And I don't think they do that anymore so much, but that's what I remember walking into stores and, you know, right? Like that's what people did.
Absolutely.
And so I guess that's what I'm bringing along, something that terrible.
How does designing costumes can we show some of the images from the Magic Flute? You designed all of these costumes. How does that compare to, is it a more joyous process? Is it?
Well, yeah, it is. It's especially if you're directing the show, because then you get to like, it's like being
you're God.
Biggest puppet show in the world, you know? And so like you have these ideas about the drama or the comedy of the show, and it's a great way to kind of like make it funnier or more beautiful or set it in a particular place. And, you know, it's like creating the world. It is being like God, you know? And I will say that it's more and more difficult to collaborate in theater unless you really believe in the other people in the room, you know? It's harder to pretend that you like people's ideas when you don't. hence the kind of thing I work with 3 people basically.
Right, but because you trust them and you know them and you respect them and you have a shorthand.
Yes.
So.
And I love what they usually say in the room, and if I don't, then I give them the benefit of the doubt because I know they're madly smart. You know?
Are you going to be doing another operette anytime soon, or
no?
Another
I don't have any plans at the moment.
All right. More questions? Yes.
Why did you stop making a TV show?
Well, you know, it was again like
Did everyone hear the question?
Why did I stop making my TV show, which I love too? I love that show. Well, I stopped making it because it evolved or devolved into something I didn't like very much. It was on for 5 years on one network, and it was great. And we did whatever we wanted because there were no ratings and nobody watched, and it was so great. Right? And then it got sold to, we took it to another network and we made it there for 2 years. And by the second year, they were like, you have to do more makeovers. And I was like, that's the last thing I want to do is makeovers. I hate makeovers. And so the second season, it was all makeovers. And I just hated that so much. And so I stopped doing it. Sorry, is that a good answer?
That's a very good answer.
Yeah. I would love to do a TV show again. Whoever's listening, call.
Under the right circumstances.
Exactly.
Yes, with some freedom.
Yeah.
I do like that you stop doing things you don't want to do. That's
so few
rare.
people do. Yes, exactly.
I don't know how you keep doing things you don't like to do.
No. And also,
I stopped dieting, right? That's another thing I stopped.
Well, Thanksgiving around the corner, we're all going to stop dieting. Exactly. Any other questions? Yes.
Isaac, when's the last time you've taken the New York City subway?
What a question. I wonder why you asked that. I love the subway. I love the idea of the subway. I don't take the subway because, you know what, I'm claustrophobic, so that's my big kind of, I really am. When I was a kid, I took the subway to high school, to performing arts. I lived in Brooklyn, and I went to performing arts, which at the time was on 46th Street, between 6th and Broadway. And honey, that was a neighborhood like that.
No, that was when it was really when you and I were young. That was James. You missed it. It was before the Disneyfication.
It was so heaven. But anyway, the point is that I took the subway an hour each way, and I used to faint on the subway, and I didn't know what it was. I would just fall to the ground.
Camille-like.
And I would wake up at J Street in Borough Hall, like someone would drag me off the subway in Brooklyn somewhere, and I'd be like, where am I? And I never told my parents because I thought if they knew I'd faint on the subway,
then you'd be back at the yeshiva.
I'll be back in yeshiva, exactly. Yeah. So it was my I loved it, and especially like there's such a great. That is a great thing. Well, first, arts education is incredible, right? Like Performing Arts High School was the best place in the world. And you would take the subway for 6 hours if you had to get there, right? But then the subway is an amazing thing that so lucky that we have.
When is the last time you've taken the subway?
Oh. I don't remember. Why are you so persistent?
Give him a Metro
I don't
card
remember.
and
3
maybe.
years ago or something? No, I remember tokens. Do they still have tokens?
They don't have tokens. Okay.
That was the last time.
There's the giveaway.
That was the last time, darling.
It was $1 back then.
Exactly.
Any other? Yes.
I have a question for Isaac. Unzipped was kind of like my introduction to you and your work and everything you do. So I kind of have a two-parter, which is, one, when you were making it, did you kind of know how iconic and sort of forward-thinking it was as a documentary? And also, retroactively looking at it, are you proud of it? And do you think it accurately represented the experience that it was filming?
Well, going into it, one meaning me and Nina Santisi, who was one of the producers of it, and Douglas Keeve, who made it with us, right? One knew that it would be hilarious because the studio was so hilarious. I mean, it was so funny. I mean, all those fittings and people and movie stars, and
you
it was
sitting with
extremely
Eartha
glamorous.
as she's
Exactly.
dancing for you in the chair.
Well, in every way. That was
Yeah.
just one. And so much of it was cut. There was a whole scene with Faye Dunaway that was cut because she wouldn't allow us to intercut it with Mommy Dearest, which was what we had done. We had intercut it, and she didn't. She owns the rights to that. I guess not. But anyway, the point is that that knowing it was going to be, we didn't. I mean, we just kind of made it, right? He was my boyfriend at the time, Douglas. So I just was shooting all the time, everywhere, and there was all this trust. And I was in the bathtub or in bed. I mean, it was just very intimate, right?
Yes.
Which was what gave it that kind of intimate thing. And then looking back on it, and no, I didn't know it would be. And I remember having lunch with agents in Hollywood who would say like, what are you talking, a document? Is that like a wet t-shirt contest video that you give away with like Elle magazine for the September issue? I was like, no, we'll check, right? Yeah, but no, so it was a very fresh thought when it hit the world, right? And then after, I like it. I think I haven't seen it in 20 years.
It's a really important piece of social history as well. It really captures a moment.
Yeah. Yes.
And you've got people in it like Polly Mellon,
Yes.
who are just characters we don't
So
see
true.
anymore.
Exactly.
And you
No,
talking
no.
about Claudette Colbert's face in Call of the Wild.
Right. Exactly. Except
the classic moment.
It's what's her name? Not Claudette Colbert. Who is it?
Loretta Young.
Exactly.
Loretta Young.
Sorry.
Thank you for the correction. Yes, another beauty.
By the way, I don't make documentaries about Hebrews. That's another Isaac Mizrahi. You introduced me. I know it's confusing. You have to. Yeah.
It's in your bio.
It is. It's in my bio.
Yes, not
Okay.
the one that was submitted by you, but you are listed anyway.
Oh no,
So,
that's
but-
bad. I'm sorry about that. I'll have to change my Wikipedia.
I think you should own it though. Yes,
Okay.
I wrote
Exactly.
the history of
Is
the
it good?
Israelis.
Oh, no, I never saw it. There you go.
There's
Light
another
napkin.
Isaac Mizrahi.
There is, and he makes documentaries about Jews.
The Jews.
Yeah, exactly. He's sort of the Ken Burns of the Jews, I guess.
I actually went to the library looking for the documentary. They didn't have it, so now
Exactly,
I'm
you see?
glad. See, all right. Oh yes.
James, has ABT had to sit you down at any point being like, hey, you're doing all these non-heteronormative things out in the world? You know, you have a big following. People know what you're doing. That is not straight ballet. Do they ever talk to you about this?
Well, it's very sensitive because they can't do that. That's like part of the whole deal. But I can't speak about it because I don't want to get fired. But I've had issues with certain individuals, and I think perhaps some people might be concerned that I am not representative of the ideals of what they believe ABT should be. But what I believe ABT should be is right there in the mission statement, providing arts and education to the widest possible audience. And so here I am, very, very unapologetic in what I do on stage and off, because it's much easier to be honest than to be caught lying. So, yes, I've had issues, but nothing that that I can't deal with in a civilized manner. And I will just continue educating the people. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a beautiful note on which to close. Would either of you want to share a final thought about something you're going to be doing, something we can look forward to, a Thanksgiving wish?
No. No, I can't think of a thing. It was such a good note.
Thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Susan's so fabulous, right? Clap for her.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. We hope you enjoyed yourselves, and please come back to the green space.